our only hope is in Jesus Christ. And I want to say this because it needs to be said. If you claim to love our God and don't love other people, then how can you say you love God? You cannot love God and not love somebody simply because of the color of their skin. It does not add up. It does not translate in the Scripture. This past week, I was on a Zoom call. We're all familiar with Zoom calls to some degree with our state ministry. And there was about 15 pastors on the call, and about half of them were African American. And we began to talk about the world events. I want to tell you that my perspective changed. And see, we see out of our lens, we see out of our lives, we see from the perspective perhaps of what we've been taught, or we see from a perspective of what we've experienced. And as I sat and I listened to these godly men who I respect and who I know their walk is with God, and I listen to them talk about what they've experienced in their life. For 2.5 hours we had this conversation, or actually they shared. I couldn't speak a word. And like, how can I even begin to speak to this? And as I sit and I listened to them talk about how they had experienced prejudice and had been treated differently simply because their skin was a different color. And one of them said, we gave the talk. He said, I gave the talk to my son. And we're like, the talk? He goes, oh yeah, you don't know about the talk. We have to have a talk with our kids that if they ever get pulled over, here's how you better act. And my world began to expand even more. And I have to tell you, I went off that call and I've sat in that conversation. And the Lord took me back to when I was 11 years old. And when I was 11 years old, I experienced racism. I experienced being treated a certain way because of my skin color. Segregation had taken place, and I was riding my bike to South Daytona Elementary as a 4th grader, but in 5th grade, the busing segregation took place. And so I got on a bus and I went to Terry T. Small Elementary School. And a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds have no idea what's going on. But I was beat up. I had to fight my way through 5th and 6th grade. But then something happened. Warner Christian Academy began, and I was taken out of that world and I was placed in this world. And I no longer experienced what I was experiencing there. Now that's not a cry of pity or anything like that. My point, as the Lord showed it to me, I was taken out of that environment. But those who are experiencing discrimination because of the color of their skin are never removed from that environment. And it hit me because I remember those days. I remember what was known as Black Friday, and if you went to school as a white kid, you were going to be punished. You were going to be beaten up. You had to fight your way through the day, and my dad is an old Georgian. He's like, you're going to school, boy. And he took me out back and said, here's how you fight. That's the world that I experienced. But I was removed from it. And I was put into a setting where I didn't experience that anymore. And I began to think about men and women who can't escape that. And then I realized, not out of sympathy, but out of empathy, because I had just experienced just a small taste of what that would be like. I want to tell you, church, if there's anything in any of our hearts that would look down upon another man or woman because of the way our God has created them, the pigmentation of their skin, we have a serious heart problem. And church, we need to be bigger than that. But it's all in a relationship with the Lord.